As I sit here, the Arizona Department of Public Safety stole my iPad and my telephone so that they could steal the evidence that they committed a crime against me. And they are hacking me. They are hacking me. I can't even download some of my recordings. A lot of my recordings of their court proceedings have disappeared. So, just like Edward Snowden has let us know, they downloaded a facsimile. Now, we noticed some time ago that law enforcement was able to override the controls of our iPhone and disable our video capabilities at will. So when it happened during the kidnapping and torture of Letha Deck, we were able to circumvent it quickly and use a backup source of Wi-Fi to get around what they had done by downloading my system and taking over executive control of my iPhone. That alone is criminal. Surveilling private communications is criminal. There's no doubt in anyone's mind that everything that's happened to me is a part of a criminal cover-up. In making this recording, I was looking through the library and other recordings that I made of the prosecutors talking during one of the many court hearings that they've had for me, but without explaining anything to me or giving me any kind of opportunity to talk to a lawyer to tell him what happened or get any kind of a defense. They violated all of my civil rights. They didn't even have a charge to make. It all happened because I was looking for a place to live. You see, I really like Arizona. The sky's a really pretty color blue. It's the color blue that I've dreamed of living with all my life. It's so perfect. But the people are not very nice. There are a lot of gangs in operation. When you go to the stores, people are rude. Gang members will mark your vehicle, notice when you come into the mall, go in the trunk of your car, pour water in the trunk of your car, mar your car with a rubber device that puts a rubber mark on your car. I've even had people shoot nail guns into my tires. I've had guy at the tire repair shops shoot nail guns into my tires. Racism, European racism, is very expensive for the American victims of it. Well, I'm living here, and every year my landlord is going up on my rent by more than 10%, $100. I don't know if that was in line with everything or not, but it made it very hard for me to keep up with paying that rent. But I was going to hang in there because I like living here and I'm expecting to be successful, so it's temporary. I'm going to be getting a better place to live soon. But I noticed that when I was ready to renew my lease, for a time when it would have been over, you couldn't have raised my rent any further. So it was going to be my year that I get to live at the same rent the year before, because if they'd raised my rent again, it would have been out of line with the region. So when I got a notice that they would not renew my lease, I immediately figured that it was to cheat me out of my bonus year, where they couldn't possibly raise the rent $100 again, because it would be totally out of line with rents in this area. It already was. So I get a note in my door that says that they are not going to renew my lease because of lease violations. Lease violations are something that my neighbors deliberately caused. Most of the neighbors here are members of a neo-Nazi gang. Now, when I explain this to you and the level of orchestration behind it, and you feel like silver rain running cloud, you are a crazy lady No one would go through that much trouble. No conspiracies exist like that. I'm going to ask you to think about what they do at the Lions Club, what they do at the Rotary Club, what they do at the golf courses. What do people do when they're gathering in the Chamber of Commerce? If you think that people, politicians in particular, are not aware of who's coming and going from their state, you need to think again. I wouldn't have thought so either. I used to be so naive, just like you. But my brother is an Illinois state politician, and I've seen him control the toll authority to give toll fines to cars driven by his enemies. I've seen law enforcement get marshaled by a DA in New York to target a car traveling to the West Coast. I've seen these things happen because I know the people with the power to do it. When you don't know the people with the power to do it seems impossible. But when you're faced by a number of uncanny coincidences that seem to happen when you're around people that are trying to rob from you or hurt you in another way, then it's time to pay a little special attention to what's going on. That's a red light. You should pay attention when you find yourself traveling from town to town, but always seeing a policeman everywhere you go. That means you're targeted. That means your vehicle is saluting the police. Now, my vehicles are installed with a special secret box that sends beacons out to law enforcement and marketing establishments. I don't know who exactly allowed this to happen, but my car is a mule, and I am a slave to someone collecting data that I derive from driving my car. The way that this cat has gotten out of the bag is very dangerous, but never more dangerous than when a corrupt gang of law enforcement are able to disable your camera and you're a journalist gathering proof. Now, they've used people at the pool to break into my internet here, and they have stolen the recordings I had in their court of the DAs, of the prosecutors, making fun of old women who were caught with a weed pipe or something, I don't know. Nothing that you would destroy a life over. It was so sad. So sad. But if you think that there aren't people out there who spend every day thinking of a way to destroy the life of an American, they're organized to do so. Because this land is very rich. Americans own a great deal of it. Americans are in line to own a great deal of it. And we have a lot of globalist investors that want to stop us from owning a great deal of it. So this transcends beyond race. They're using soldiers that will use race as their reason to destroy. But the reason they are being deployed is so much greater than that, as it always is in war. They are just part of the culture war that's being waged to distract us all and turn us all against us. But underneath the culture war is a war for all the water in the world, and all the gold, and all the silver, and all of the resources, and all of the fine places to live. At stake is America. So just take my word for it when I say people are very well organized, because the amount of money supports large populations of people with nothing to do but watch you. As a result, I watched every single African American and East Indian family move from here, and Arab as well, move from here quickly. They had to keep moving. Where I've seen European families stay here. I've also been the victim of European crimes, systematic terrorizing crimes, where I had a boy upstairs would come to my door, leave leaves on my door, cigarette butts at my door, like, we're watching you. It was terrifying. I finally got fingerprints and had the police take the fingerprints away as evidence, and that family moved down the road, not very far. But I don't want to say anything about my landlord right now, because I suppose I'll be evicted soon, because the COVID protections will be running out. Which brings me back to why I discovered all of these things about the criminal economy that's hidden in Arizona. I needed a place to live because my neighbors complained about everything. If I played my music, whoever lived downstairs in the gang apartment would say, your music was too loud. So I have not been able to enjoy music as long as I've lived here. If I had my dog off the leash, which I do now, but if I had him off the leash, they would report that. If I was babysitting children and the children were loud, they would report that. If they started fights with me and I fought back with them, they would report that. They would report everything I did. And I would get a note from housing, from the property manager. You know why I got a note? Because every time they bothered me, I called the police. Every single time the neo-Nazi gangs did a terrorist act, breaking in my car, breaking in my apartment, stealing my money, intimidating me, loosing dogs on me. Whenever they did things like that, I called the police. I called the police so many times that the sergeant of the police called me about 2 years ago, which would be about 3 years into this torment, and said, what can we do? And I said, hey, we've got young people picking on senior citizens. It's not just about race. It's about keeping these communities safe. Arizona architecture lends itself to certain kinds of psychopathic behavior because there's so much walled-in property that's all fenced in and walled in. So many people, especially the Europeans, live in forts. They live in one way in, one way out, cul-de-sacs that are as big as a city block. It's very oppressive, if you ask me. Walls go on for a mile, uninterrupted. So you can't get through. There's no way to get through. And I thought that was very strange at first, and I thought it was just part of racism, because I experienced so much of this as a result of racism that that's my primary lens. But as I began to look for a new place to live, I discovered that these people are not protective against me. They are protective against strangers. Because when you go off the roads or you go too far or too deep, one way or the other, you run into a hidden resource. Behind those walls are other walls, and other walls, a labyrinth of walls. We saw the primary structure being developed in Queens Creek. We reported on it. It's one reason why we have been facing the kind of attack from organized crime that's using law enforcement as the arm to abuse us, because we reported on it and more. If you think that the African Americans that live here are any help or support while all this racism is going on and this social humiliation, you're wrong. The ones that live here are as loyal as any plantation slave because their economic rewards are tied to their allegiance to the system. So the African Americans that I did meet Their job was to spy on me. The one I did meet was in the Chamber of Commerce and the Better Business Bureau, and he had a business, and he would talk to me as if he was auditioning me for work. And every time I said, hey, let me sign you to a contract, he would say no, because his job was to spy on me. Well, the last time, because he watched me suffer, he was watching me starve and wouldn't even buy me a sandwich, even though I was building his business as a part of my training in my capital certification for copywriting. So I was building his business, and I did a great job. He met his goal ×7 because of our promotional work, but he wouldn't give me a dime. He wanted to starve me out of business. He wanted to make sure I couldn't make a living here, and that was his primary job. And then I met other people, and we were starting an organization, and they stole all my ideas and took them and made a new organization. So, and then I met people in that organization who didn't want to associate too much because they work in the ranch with the ranch people. So I thought everyone was quirky and peculiar. But as a genius, woman, American, who's moved and lived in a number of different socioeconomic and cultural milieus, I'm used to not fitting in. So it takes me a while to figure out, is this my usual not fitting in because I'm not functioning on the same plane of reality? Or is this something more systemic? Well, what I found when I went looking for a place to live so I could stay in Arizona was more of the same. I found hostility. I found places that I wanted to live that were behind fences and walls. Then I started finding places where I just wanted to walk in a state park behind fences and walls. Then I found dirt roads where highways should be that would become dirt roads again, deep, deep in, where the factories were, nestled in the hills. And while I was driving, looking for a place to live, I saw railroads in the middle of nowhere and huge power lines where there are absolutely no cities on the map. Unless you look really closely and expand the map to see that people are living there. If you try to go close to those communities or neighborhoods, you will attract the attention of road gangs that include employees from the Arizona Department of Transportation. And why not? After all, the Department of Transportation is the organization that plans those roads with steep, narrow shoulders that would cause accidents, that could cause other people to drive you into an accident if you're trying to escape a lynch mob. We found roads where the Department of Transportation would build a road all the way up to a private organization with no other buildings or a reason for a road around. And then the road would become private. So we saw so many examples of where the Department of Transportation used public funds and public lands to create access exclusively designed for investors to use in their privatization of public assets. We just wanted to go for a walk in a park while we were looking for a place to live. And we ran into a nest. The nest of crime that keeps Arizona going until now.